think that I wanted to really talk a lot about. I really wanted to talk about the fact of when children enter care. I think that's a pivotal point of making sure that we have somebody that can be a, I like the word guide, to guide the kids and the young people in care. When you are thrown into the system, I think that it's very confusing, and a lot of the time is spent on ensuring your safety and your well-being, that it's overseen that you may have questions, or you may have concerns, or you may have feelings that aren't being validated. And so I want to think about, like, how can we, especially as advocates for kids in care, and especially in the courts, how can we advocate that those kiddos' voices have a chance to be heard and understood. Thanks, Tim. So what I think I'll say, I'll just go back a little bit and just say that what I'm thinking is that around when children enter care, it's so confusing and scary, and there's so many feelings going on and so many emotions that I think this is a great time for, especially as a court advocate, to have a space that can make an environment for the beginning of a relationship with these kiddos, talking about maybe how they're feeling and really being and hearing what they're saying. Because I think that a lot of the times what happens is you get shuffled through the system, that you have no real idea what's going on, or where you're going, or what's going to happen next. And it just creates a very difficult environment to thrive in. And so I think that all of us can agree that what we want to be doing is creating an environment where these kiddos can not only grow healthy, but also thrive and find success later on in their futures. And part of the navigation, I think, is making sure that we have access to resources in our community that can help you to find answers if you don't have the answers. And I always love to send people, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, DCYF has a website called independence.wa.gov. I'll put this in the chat. And Independence is a really great spot for finding information for the young people, or for yourself, about what's going on. It has a space where you can learn about Passion Action, which is a youth advisory board that is hired on as experts in the system to influence and help share their expertise with policymakers and improve the current DCYF policies and laws. So,
hey, Ryan, this is Krista. While we're waiting for her to come back on, do we know how many like high schoolers are in the system?
Yes, we do. So total, we have, at any given time, there's about 8,500 kids total on any given day, about 10,000 throughout the course of a year. And then I want to say there's around 1,500 to 2,000 that are that high school age across the state.
Okay, thank you.
And a lot of times too, one of the unique things about Washington is that, I just read this somewhere the other day, but we have the second highest in the country in terms of the youngest kids coming into our system, right? So 20, and we've talked about this before, but 25% of the kids coming into foster care are ages birth to 1 year old. So 25% of all kids. So in our state, we're a little bit unique in that we typically don't file dependencies on older children. And so by the time we get to adolescents who are in care, many of them have been in care for years, right? So that's a little bit, so when we're talking about kids in our state, that's a little bit more unique. So a lot of the kids, the older kids, have been in for foster care for a while. Though that's not always true. It's just a generalization. But hey, Jeannie, are you back?
Yep, I'm back.
Oh, that's...
So I sent the link for Thank you, Alice. Independence.wa.gov. So if you guys visit that, you can find a lot of really great information around helping to give some navigational skills to the young people. It is designed for adolescents, but it's never too soon, if you ask me, to give this information to the young people. And there is a lot of other spaces for finding their voices in organizations like there's Foster Care Alumni of America, there's also Foster Club, and there's a lot of really great local opportunities for the young people to find a space to learn some great leadership skills, to grow, and to also, in my opinion, begin to heal some of their experience, some of their time and their experiences. I know I'm kind of moving fast, so does anybody have questions that they want to ask around some of these ideas of navigating to young people that I have been sharing?
3 foster homes. How do you help a child like that?
I missed the first part. What was the first part?
Okay, we have an adolescent boy who has been brainwashed by his parents to believe that there's no valid basis for the dependency in the first place, and therefore he's unhappy in any foster home, and he's already been dismissed by 3 foster homes. And how do I talk to a child like that?
That's a really, really tough one. I think that, in my opinion, probably I would start by asking him questions and letting him talk, and seeing and just finding out how he's feeling, and maybe what some of the goals or ideas that he might have that he would like to reach, and let him know that you could guide him to reach those goals. If he's between, I think it's 14 to 21, he would be eligible to apply for Passion to Action. And so I might suggest that you look into something like that, where he can learn some ideas and be around other peers that from CARE, and possibly figure out ways that he can learn to speak up and advocate for maybe some of the things that he would like. Is that sounding like what you're looking for? Or
well, he would advocate for going back to his parents, which would be a disaster. So I don't know where that leads us.
Yeah, and that one's really tough, because I think that what gets often overlooked is that there's no validations for his feelings. And even though you may feel, and the courts may feel, that that's the worst outcome is to send him back, he may not have that feeling. Without being validated, it'll be very hard for him to move forward, possibly. That one is so hard. And I think that when we talk about individual situations like that, it's really difficult.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, Ryan, if you have anything to add in, that would be great, because you may have a little more experience with those kind of situations.
I'm here to learn from you, Jeannie. So keep going.
Thanks. Yeah. And Linda, I don't know that book, but it may be something that to definitely look into.
Yeah, it's an excellent resource. He also has a great video that's about 5 minutes long. He was a teenage boy that until age 14 was in and out of multiple foster homes, and the book gives a tremendous number of suggestions about what's important to them at different ages and how to approach them and talk to them. Very valuable.
Yeah, thank you. And that makes a good point of, I think that if you remember yourself when you were that age, you may be able to offer through your adult lens insight that could be helpful to that young person too. But I really feel strongly about the validation, because I think that the system also is, it's hard when people are telling you that they know what's best for you, and they don't slow down to stop and ask you, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? And not just saying like such an abrupt no, and that's not the right thing for you. So I think that it's just really, really important to figure out a way to say to him, and even ask him. I would just sit down and say, why would you like to go home? And just literally let him talk and see what he says. And it's just really about hearing them. I think that that's one of the things that I remember. I felt really unheard. When I went to my dependency hearings, I had no idea what was going on. And everybody around me was making all the decisions for me without ever asking me what I thought or felt, or if that was what I wanted to do. And as an adult, I'm kind of grateful for the decisions, some of the decisions that were made for me, such as tutoring and going to summer school and getting caught up in school, because as a result of those decisions being made and my doing them, I actually graduated from high school on time. So I didn't see it at the time, but now I'm very grateful that those people spoke up. And I see. I really like what you said, Marie. That's really great. And that might be something that you can try to say. Ellen, I did have an attorney. I did not know that I had an attorney. I think that happens. I don't even, as a 15-year-old, I don't even think I understood what the attorney was asking me or who they really were. And I think that that's one of the other problems that we run into, is that these kiddos have so many people that they have to meet up and talk to, that I think they have no idea who each person is and what that person does specifically. And so like, that's one of the things that I would really like to see change, is like, if you are an attorney, or if you are a court advocate, of just really making sure that you use child or youth friendly language, so that the young person really understands what your role is and who you are and what you can do for them. Because I quite often, and I still hear it now, is that the young people don't realize that there's an ombudsman's office that they can report to if they feel that they are unsafe in their home, or they're unhappy, or they've been mistreated, or anything like that. And, I think that if the kiddos and the young adults understood this, they may be able to advocate for whatever it is that they want, right? Meaning, are they looking to see their siblings more, or would they like more visits with their parent, or would they like no visits with their siblings, or things like that. I think that if they understood who that person was and what they can actually help them to achieve, then I think it would be a lot clearer and better for the young people. And to be honest, I would like to see a space when our kiddos have an attorney and possibly a court advocate, because I think each person has a different role and a different a specialty that they can offer to that young person. And when we see the kiddos in care, what we'll notice is that usually, from what I've heard I didn't have a court advocate, but from what I'd heard, that court advocate is the only person that has been consistent in their whole time in child welfare. And that's a really, really amazing opportunity for being an amazing guide, or being a champion to that young person, and giving them every opportunity to get the tools that they need in order to be the best person that they can be. Sorry. But I think that without knowing what that person's job is and who they are, it makes it really difficult for them to understand who they're talking to and how that person can actually help them. And does anybody else have any questions around?
Jeannie,
yes.
Jeannie, could you talk about how one would have approached you, or what you would have needed to hear as an alum, when you were going through that from, could you give us any helpful hints?
Oh yeah, that's a tough one, to be honest, Ryan, because I think for me, when I entered care, I entered in a kind of unique way. I had people step up and want to take me in. So I didn't go through foster care the traditional way. I had people that one day I was with my family, and the next day I was with this with this new family. And I think that abrupt change, and I think that's going to be a shared experience, that abrupt change of being one place one day and then and another place and another day. I didn't get to say goodbye to my family. I had pets that I didn't get to ever see again. I didn't get to pack my own things that I wanted to take with me. So I guess I felt that I didn't understand what was going on. I just knew that I had to live in this new place and follow these new rules. And in some ways, it was like my family died that day, and I had to now be part of this new life and do what all these people were saying. And I don't even know, because I'm sure that there was a lot of court-appointed things that happened that I never got to share my thoughts and views on. And I think that that's really the thing that I'd love for all of you all to hear, maybe, is that I'm trying to take a step back and asking that young person, just giving them space to share and to be heard, because I felt like I wanted to see my sister, and I don't think I ever felt the courts ever helped with that. And so I was in a placement for about 1.5 years without her, and then I was placed with her. So during that 1.5 years, I saw her maybe once, and that was really hard for me because of my own experience of being the caregiver of her and suddenly being removed. And I think that when I got placed back with her, it was very difficult because I went back into that caregiver role, and it wasn't my feelings weren't treated very kindly, because the foster parents felt that they were the parents, and they didn't understand that I had been her caregiver, and that even though I was a child and didn't understand through their lenses, I had my own ways of wanting to help her and be her support. And I think that that's where, when you have the siblings, that's a really nice thing, because my sister and I, when we finally lived together, we were able to talk with each other and felt more, what would you call it? We felt that the two of us could say things and we would be heard more than just being separate. I think that's the main thing. I can tell you that at that age, I did not want to talk to anybody, because I didn't understand who I was talking to and why. I guess sometimes, and I still feel this way, people ask a lot of questions and they don't mean to. And I don't want to share my story anymore sometimes, because when you share your story, people begin to judge you. I still have people go, how come you're so normal and you're so put together? And it's just kind of really hurtful in so many ways that I can't even explain. I just think that the image that we have of kids who go through the child welfare system and the families, because I really think that we forget that it's a family. There is a lot of people that are affected by a child being removed from their home. There's so many feelings and emotions and so many things that never really get resolved, that it makes it really hard. I think if I had a child advocate and that person had told me that they were my advocate and that they would be asking the courts for, it makes it really hard, because I think that sometimes, just like the example that we got of the young boy, what we feel isn't what the courts feel is right or appropriate for us. And there has to be a middle ground of, and I think that's why I say validate, just saying, yes, I liked, I think it was, let me see, sorry. It was Marie who had said, let's talk about it, and really hearing that and just saying that, I think we just need to hear, I understand that you want that, and that's what we all want. but sometimes things that we want aren't possible. I think that you'd be surprised probably how young people can understand what that means. And it just really would give a space for them trusting you. And I think when you trust, then you can build once you build that trust and they start learning how to have healthy relationships, I think the long-term picture is what's helpful to them. And that's what I really want to say, is that I just really spending a little extra time trying to validate their feelings. Thank you, Nicole, for your comment. I think that I think that everyone has had struggles to get to where they are. And I think that the thing is that if we can even the playing field for young people who may not have privileged information, such as like, how do you do well in school? How do you, if you decide to go to college, how do you get to go to college? Once you get to college, how do you navigate the college life, right? And then what does it mean when you grow up and you have to have a job, and like what does it mean to be a member of society and things like that? I think that that's where I feel that young people in child welfare may not have had those privileged opportunities, and to just show them or share that with them can hopefully raise them above to, I always tell them to reach for the stars. I just hope that they can reach for the stars and that any dream that they have can come true. They just need help navigating. And I think it's true of any child, a rich kid, a poor kid, a kid in child welfare, a kid, the divorced parents, it's really all the same. Let's see. Thank you, Heidi. And I think that by sharing, this is what I've learned, is by sharing, this is how we can create the change that we want to see. So by sharing ideas and sharing insight, and really that's why I wanted to try to have a conversation with all of you, of just really talking and sharing more and learning from one another. And I think that's how we create a better world for everybody, if you ask my opinion on that.
Jeannie.
Yes.
You've talked to many, many, many alumni of foster care. Is there any common threads or things that you want to share about that experience, or kind of what they're saying they want to hear, or what they want the system to do for them?
I think a common thread. It's kind of a difficult thing because I feel that my insight is, I'd hate to say it, semi-biased. And I say that because the young people that I have the opportunity to work with are kiddos that are somewhat on track or are connected to organizations that offer leadership and advocacy opportunities for them. So these young people are possibly more successful than some of the other young people. And what I mean is, like, so the young people I work with, they've all graduated high school. So I feel that they're in a different area. And I know Treehouse is doing some amazing work and our graduation rates are increasing, but I don't know about the ones that aren't graduating. I don't have the chance to talk to those guys. But one thing that we all do share is that I'd say very few of us have an opportunity for learning healthy relationships. And with that, I mean, once we exit care, I'd say almost all of us, I don't know, I'd say almost all of us want to reconnect with our bio family. And if you weren't reunited, I think it makes it more difficult because there were reasons that you weren't reunited. And without given tools on how to maintain a healthy relationship and how to have boundaries and things like this. I think a lot of the young people, they go back to the family and the same behaviors and the same emotions and things of when they were removed happen again as an adult, and it becomes more confusing. And I think when that happens, those guys are the ones that tend to then begin to retreat. So that's why I think I keep thinking about the question about that young person who wants to go back to his family, because I just worry if he doesn't have somebody speak up for him and to learn some really helpful tools and how to handle that. It may be a problem later on for him when he can, after he exit care, go back. That's why I really want to emphasize the part about validating. Yeah. So, and even if his beliefs are a lie, I would still say that he still needs the validation. I think that's one of the things that's really hard to communicate, is that I don't know how to articulate it. Give me a second. Because when you have a family that you're born in and you shared your life with, even if it's unhealthy, it's really difficult not to have that connection and want to have that connection. I think we see that a lot. I don't know if folks have read the book A Boy Called It, where I think it's David, I don't remember David's last name, but if you read his experience of his need for his mother's love, I think that it kind of clouds everything in some ways. And so I think that's why it's important that we think about how we use words when we're talking to these young people about that feeling that he is having. And even though we call it a belief, it's really an innate feeling inside of your heart, I think, that you want to be back with your family, even if it's not the best place for you. Yeah, A Child Called It. That's the book. Thank you, Jenny. It really gives you an idea about that. Thank you, Mary. Yes, I agree. It's just the little things that when we're talking about safety of that child that we overlook so easily, of not even knowing that we need to ask, like, did they have a favorite pair of pajamas that they needed to wear at night? Or did they have a favorite book that they wanted to bring with them? Or, and I think that when we aren't offered that space of realizing that we miss things, or in some ways I don't like to say that we have to grieve, but we have to have a space where we can really be heard. And, and if the kiddos have a pet that they lost, then, maybe that's something, if that's important and you hear that, you can advocate that the kid gets to see that pet, maybe in a picture or a video, or, some way of really making sure that that kiddo knows that they still have that connection. Sharon, I don't have a lot of experience around that. And so I don't know. I don't really, other than to say that I think it's just like any young person. It's really about making sure that that young person knows that they're loved and that they are supported. And I think it's kind of funny. It'll all come back around. It's like, is anybody listening to that young person? Is anyone hearing why, and allowing that kid, not answering for them, like really hearing, like, why are they choosing to do things that you may not agree with, right? And then when you listen, I think you have opportunities for sharing other ideas that they may not have thought of or considered. Nancy, that's a good question. I think that's the one that we've been all working towards for so long. Transitions are really difficult, and I think that you can see this in little kids when they, for instance, are in the foster home, and then they have a visit with their parents, and then they go back to the foster home, and they might misbehave when they get back to the foster home. They're processing that time, or understanding why they had to let go and lose their parents again, for instance. Transitions are really difficult, I think, for anybody. The foster club, and let me put this in the chat box here. Hold on just a second. Foster Club is a wonderful organization out of Oregon, and they have they do every year, they do a what is it called? So every year Foster Club does a AllStar Program, and the AllStar Program is a space for 18 to 26-year-olds, I think it is, to go down to Seaside, Oregon, and they get leadership skills and opportunities. And then I think the most amazing part is that during that internship time, they get to spend, I think it's a week in Washington, D.C., and they get to meet all the congressmen and talk to the congressmen of their state, because these kids are coming from all over the country. They get to talk to their congressmen and share their ideas and feelings about foster care and what they would like to see. But Foster Club has a really, really great booklet that the young people have created themselves about transitions. And so in the resources, you can find it there. And that might have some really, really great ideas to help support you, to help the young person to navigate through that. And it's hard. You know, the young people share a lot too, is that what happens is when they turn 18 and then they exit, they've had somebody that they could call that was being paid to answer questions for them. And then when they leave care, they don't have that person anymore. So I think that that's been the hardest thing for a lot of the young people, is that, like, say they get an apartment and then they might be cold one night because they don't understand a thermostat or how to use the thermostat, or they're too hot because they've turned it up and they don't realize that you need to turn it down. They've been trying to figure out a way to help give tools to these kids. Casey Family Programs has life skills that kind of help, kind of don't. It's one of those, I don't know. I'd say I got annoyed because you had to take this life skills test every year, and the questions are very simple questions, but sometimes you don't want to answer them. And then when you don't answer them, then nobody knows that you really need help. Sometimes, you know, I know when I was 15, I didn't want to feel stupid. So I just said I knew things that I didn't know. I was too scared. So I think that if there's a way that you can connect to that young person and ask them, you know, what they would like to know rather than what they know or don't know, then that might be a better way to communicate and get some great chances to talk about transitions and to prepare them. Because I think that that's what we need to be doing, is that really from the time they enter care, preparing them to exit at some point. And that's been the real hard one, is figuring out like where it is. And we all enter for different reasons. We're all at different levels of development. And so I think it makes it really, really hard to just like paint a brush across it. So it's really about asking that young person what it is that they want to accomplish, and helping them to accomplish that goal, if you want to call it a goal. Does that answer your question, Nancy, or did you have another question attached to that?
No, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. And I love that you shared that foster club out of Oregon. I guess my question is, why don't we have one here in Washington?
So Foster Club is a national organization. We do have some programs that are similar, not the same. And that's why if you go to independence.wa.gov, Passion to Action is our local DCYF program that has a, let's see, there's 22 young people from the ages of 14 to 26 that come from across the state that, sorry, we meet once a month. Maybe talking too much. We meet once a month to talk about DCYF's policies and rules, and we get together. And I think that what I love about Passion Action, because I'm an advisor on it, is that it feels like a family that you've never had. And so a lot of us have an opportunity to be with our brothers and sisters from CARE, have a shared experience, and we don't have to explain ourselves and we know what's going on. Yeah, so it's, oops. Oh, sorry, everybody, I sent that specifically to Chrissy. It's Passion to Action. And you can find the information at the independence.wa. So if you go to independence.wa.gov and then you just put in the search box Passion to Action, you'll be able to find out the information about them. We also have, so internal work that's being done on child care reform, foster care reform would be done by Passion to Action, and external would be Mockingbird Society. They do lobbying with the state around laws that they would like to see put into place. We also have for older alumni, we have, and I'll put that one in there too. You may not be dealing with older ones as much, but Foster Care Alumni of America is the national organization, and Washington State has a chapter. So they're doing more national foster care reform. Passion to Action would be inside DCYF. Mockingbird would be external local Washington State foster care work. And I believe that there's also some other, you may be able to find some other opportunities if young people are in other organizations, such as, I think that there's like the Girl Scouts have a troop for foster kids. I think that, let's see, some of the YMCA is a great place. I don't know if you guys are aware of the YMCA Young Adult Center. So the YMCA Young Adult Center is part of the 2100 building. So that's in South Seattle. They have some really great opportunities for young people, and they kind of do some of the life skills. There's two parts of it. There's one part that is the independent living program, and then the Young Adult Center is a place for the young people to come and ask questions and get support from caseworkers. I think you can go to the Young Adult Center until you're 26, but I'm not sure. I haven't been a little more removed from that now than I was before. I also want to share that if you guys have any young people that are sibling groups, Camp to Belong is an amazing program that runs every summer. With COVID restrictions, I don't know, you would have to check, but every summer they get siblings together for a week to spend in their camp, and they do all kinds of great activities. What I really love is that they bring alumni in to talk to the kiddos and answer questions and share their stories and their lives with them. And it's a great space to start to feel like, just to see an older foster kid being in a kind of a healthy role, it's really inspiring to these young people. I know that they really loved meeting all of alumni that have come through. So Passion to Action sometimes does workshops there. Foster Care Alumni of America does work there, and there's just some really great opportunities. But Camp to Belong is it's really, really amazing. I think that they presented last year at your conference, and I'm not sure if they're presenting again, but if they are, I would recommend checking them out. It's a really, really amazing space for young people. So Passion to Action, we meet every 6 to 8 weeks throughout the year. We take a few weeks off in the summer, but right now it's Zoom, so it's a little more accessible if kiddos have access to technology. But usually we meet in South Seattle. The really great thing is that since it's with the department, transportation's taken care of. They get to spend time with other young people that have lived in the foster care system. We have lunch together, and we have leadership opportunities. Ryan's been really supportive of our Passion to Action youth coming and presenting their own workshops every year at these conferences. And they also do core trainings. So the young people might, through the Alliance, when a foster parent is first applying to be a foster parent, they will have a Passion Action youth that can go and speak on their experience, kind of like what I'm doing, sharing their stories and expertise with the potential foster parents. We've had several that have sit on other boards and other committees. We have just really, really incredible opportunities of growth that I think every kiddo that can join should join, if you ask me.
Hey, Jeannie.
Yes.
I know one of the other things that you had been working on for quite a while was the Normalcy Project. Can you talk about
Yes.
why that was important to you and kind of what it meant to work with you about that project? And just give us a brief overview of what that was.
Yeah. So I think for me, I felt really lucky. I had foster parents who just wanted me to be a kid while I could be a kid. So I had every opportunity to experience whatever I wanted to try or do. And my foster parents encouraged me to hang out with my friends and to have sleepovers and go to movies and try different activities. My sister went to horse camp. And so these are some of the examples of our experience. And so for me, I felt like I had a fairly normal childhood, I guess you could say. And when I entered care, I realized this wasn't true for my brothers and sisters of care. And a lot of laws and policies were set in place to protect young people. And I feel as a result, little things got overseen and got very difficult to do. So we had been talking prior to probably like in the late 2000s, I had been talking to Justice Bridge about incorporating some normalcy for kids, of really letting them have chances to do sleepovers, let them have chances to learn about their culture, let them have chances to just be kids and try, violin or do a sport or do any of these things. Because I think before, because now we've changed it, but before, when a kid was in a sport, they may not have been allowed if the team had won a championship and went to, say, another state to play, those kiddos in care may not have been necessarily allowed to go because it was so complicated to get the signature to allow them to travel with their team. So in about 2010, the commissioner, Justice Bridge, had suggested that I chair a work group to look at how we can incorporate some of these normalcy issues that we were seeing. And so Ryan joined, and several other commissioners joined, and partners in the community joined. And we really looked at what we thought would help to offer these opportunities of normalcy for our young people in care. And one of the ways that we thought was through the prudent parent standard. And so that was the one that we chose, and we started looking into it. At the time, California had been doing it. One of our advisors had come from California, so he knew about it. And so we just talked about it, brought it to the commission, and Mockingbird picked it up. And other team community partners picked it up, and we advocated for a law to be changed. And so now we have the Prudent Parent Standard. My work group also created a Mythbuster, and let me get that up. So if you go to the DCYF website under the guidelines, you'll be able to pull up we updated the caregivers guidelines, which hadn't been updated for over a decade. We added I think it's a 2-pager. It's called No Before You Say No. So it kind of is like a Mythbuster of just some basic things that we felt were important that people could know. Let me see. It's been so long, I can't even think of let me check and see if I can get an example for you guys. Yeah, so one of the ones that's really important to young people was there's a myth that they cannot bring their belongings with them. And so the Mythbuster is that there is an RCW that they can take these belongings. And with that, I'd also like to add, I am one of the young people that when I moved from my one foster home to my second foster home, my foster parents put all of my belongings in hefty bags and put it on the lawn of my new foster parents' home. And so I traveled with, there's so much stuff that's attached to that, but so all of my stuff was in a garbage bag on my new foster parents' home. And as a result, it made me feel like my stuff was trash. And I've carried that for a long time. And it's something that's still sensitive to me. I don't allow hefty bags in my house, to be honest. I don't like looking at black hefty bags still to this day. And I know sometimes a lot of foster kids, there's been some changes, but a lot of foster kids still experience having to move with trash bags. And so there's been movements, and there's been people that have tried to change this. I think one year at the conference, somebody sewed hundreds and hundreds of bags. It was so sweet. It really touched my heart. They sewed the little bags to give to the young people so they could put their belongings in a hand-sewn bag to take to their homes. We've talked about, trying to get suitcases for these young people, and some wealthier communities are able to do that, but it kind of varies from place to place. But you can see that there's a variety of Mythbusters on there, and it's a really great, fast way of looking at some of the things that you might think are a no when in fact they aren't. Let's see. So Greg asked, are there funds available to foster parents? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that Treehouse offers Make-A-Wish programs. And so they help young people to have opportunities in the communities. It really depends where you live. Ryan, do you know the answer? I don't know.
Not specifically. Every community is different. I would say most communities have like a foster care support group network where they can provide funds for that. Sometimes even the CASA programs themselves or the advocate programs themselves. So just start asking is basically the question. And usually that need will sometimes get fulfilled. Talk to your local program staff. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I wasn't sure. And I know it's different. I lived in King County. So there was always the 2100 building, there's Treehouse, and there's lots of local organizations that help. But I mean, I think that that's just one of those things that you don't even think about, like, graduation gowns and prom dresses, and even like going to movies with your friends. These are little things that are normal, but I think that funding seems to be a crutch, but it doesn't have to be, because there are people in the community who can help. If you, like Ryan said, start asking where funds are available. I know that you can also ask the social workers, because sometimes there are, depending on their age, they do have access to funding that can help to support those normalcy activities. So if they do want to play a sport, somebody can help to make that happen. Oh, that's awesome, Jeff. Yeah, I think that's great. I see sometimes people saying, like when you have an old suitcase, to donate it to like your local, even your local DCYF office, or, and I don't know, you can probably all ask your local advocate offices too, if they have needs for those things. It's huge. You can just really start asking and helping with making sure that kiddos are traveling and moving in an appropriate way, or even, you have a box, and helping them to pack their box is huge. It's huge, especially I think if I had been able to pack my stuff, that would have probably made me feel like what I felt was important was cared for in the way that I wanted it cared for, and that I mattered. Thank you, Joseph. It looks like Friends of CASA can fund some special needs for kids in your communities. Thank you, Linda. I don't know Helping Hands, but that's something else you can look at. There's a lot of stuff. It just really depends where you are. And if in doubt, I would reach out to somebody at Treehouse, even Treehouse for Kids, and Treehouse could probably connect you with somebody in the community. Oh, great idea. Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, you can also try to contact high schools and other organizations, and I'd even say elementary school and middle schools to provide funds for programs for kiddos. Oh, wow, Jan, that's pretty cool. I bet the kids enjoyed that. I don't know where Clem County is, but that's really cool to offer them ice skating opportunities. And it's just those little things like, like offering them a space to ice skate. I'd love to see more opportunities for kids in communities that are in care to connect to one another, so that they know that they're not alone. Because I think that's the other thing, that it really feels very isolating, and that there's something wrong with you and you're the only one that isn't with your family, when in fact it's not true. I think that's one of the things that has been really a huge eye-opener for me, of seeing with my work with Passion Action and with some other organizations that I've worked with, that it's just amazing. You just feel like you're not so weird, I guess. I don't know what else to say it. I've also had the opportunity to travel around the world to observe foster care in some of the other countries. And previous to COVID, I had spent the last year and a half traveling to Japan to do trainings around youth engagement and youth advocacy. And it's just really eye-opening when you see what's working in another country and what's not working, and how you can use that to maybe improve theirs and yours system. It's pretty amazing. Some people have some great ideas, and I've loved having the opportunity to share some of those with my commissioners and with the work that I do in my community.
Can you share some of those now with all of us, maybe to inspire us about what good ideas you've seen?
That take. So I went to Iceland, and I learned about the foster care system in Iceland. And I think one of the things that I took from that was really amazing is that Iceland does a matching program with the child and the families. So they match kids in care with a family. And then those kids, the way that Iceland works is that they never, what is it? So the kid, they don't, so their form of permanency is not having that kid ever leave child welfare, so that the family and the child are a part of the child welfare for their whole time. And they work really, really hard to ensure that the kiddo stays in the same home, which makes a huge difference, I think, for our young people, because it creates an environment of stability. It creates a connection, because you can begin to relate with these people and you know you're not going to be moved. It also offers opportunities for in some ways, in my mind, more success than being, they're not really called foster kids. They have another word for it. And the way that it is that those kids don't feel so broken and damaged, I think, is probably the best way to explain it. They are just members of the community, and the community wraps around them. And I think that that's where I was really moved, is that this wrapping around that the community had of that young person, and that young person being just like everybody else. And so it comes back to feeling normalcy and things like that. Let's see, hold just a second. Thank you, Sarah. Island County and San Juan kids pays for music lessons if anybody's in that community. Oh, Jan, about extended foster care. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Hold on just a second here. And in Pierce County, they have a Kids Connect. So if anybody's in Pierce County, there's a couple of programs there that can help support. And I think this is a great thing when you guys share what's in your community with other people in your community. You can see what's going on. And if your community doesn't have, say, what is Pierce County's one called? If you don't have the wishing well, then, and you can learn about the wishing well, you can take that back to your community leaders and say, why don't we have a wishing well for our kids? And then if you find yourself some young people that can help advocate for that by sharing why they think that that's important, I think that you could create amazing things. Extended foster care is, I don't think that we've figured out how to make it as successful as it could be. Personally, when I was 18, I would not have done extended foster care. I was done with the system telling me what to do and making all the decisions for me without me. I didn't want, and I wouldn't have wanted another, 3 years of a case manager and having to check in with people all the time. If it's done right, I think that it could be an amazing opportunity. In my opinion, I would love to see it change to being more of an independence kind of program where we have support services set in place and tools for the young people to be on their own and have the chance. So I feel like a lot of kids don't have the chance to fail in the foster care system because if you fail at something, it can be quite detrimental to your well-being. And I mean, by that, I mean that if you say ran away from the home for whatever reason, most likely you would be removed from that home. And that could be a huge, it turned your whole world upside down. And and with that, then you have to move to another home, and depending on your age bracket, then you have to get used to another home. And then if you feel like you run, it just creates a pattern, I think. So without giving young people opportunities to do something wrong or to fail, I think we do them a disservice. And I'd like to see where they can do that. Yeah, I wish we could call it something different too. I think that, and that's been one of the things that's been hard for our young people too, because when you are in extended foster care, legally, they still consider you a child. And in the court papers, it does say your child. And I think that that doesn't help that young person to feel like they're gaining their independence and are able to transition into adulthood. Extended foster care works for a certain bracket of young people. And I think that we're still working on it. Passion to Action Youth are always advocating for changes. They're advocating for what they would like to see. They're the ones with because they're in care or recently out of care, they really can share invaluable insight into what would be more successful for the program. I think that it works really well for young people who are in college, and it would be really well for young people that might be trying to figure out. I'm one of those people that I really think young people should have a gap year or an opportunity if they need it to have that gap year. And that would be a great safety zone if they could remain in foster care during that gap year while they figure out what it is that they want to do. So I don't work for the department, so I can't, and Ryan, if you know the answer, let me know. I don't think you missed the opportunity because everybody's pretty much automatically, you can be enrolled in it. But that would be a discussion, I think, with their social worker. And this is a space where you could start talking to your own young person, is that when they're 16 and 17, you can talk to them about extended foster care and begin to prepare them for navigating into applying for it if they need to apply for it, or what it means for them, or the benefits and whether they feel that that would work for them. And if they don't feel that it would work for them, I would really encourage to talk to your local social worker about extended foster care and what services exactly are offered and what's entailed.
And my understanding of that, and it's been a while since I've done extended foster care, but I know in King County when we were working on it, that they recognized that the window was too quick to shut. And so I think now you should just be able to call DCYF directly. So Jeff, just to have them call DCYF directly and say, I have a youth that wants to, a former foster youth that wants to engage in extended foster care. What do I do? Even if they don't know who the old social worker was, just call a local DCYF office and explain, and that should get them going. They did open that gate back up.
Yeah, I think you get one chance to come back if you exit it, I think is the other part, because before you couldn't come back. And I think that they're allowing in that window, that 18 to 21 window, you can come back once, I believe, but you really want to be talking to your local DCYF office. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I don't know the answer to it kicking in. That's kind of, I'm not sure exactly how to answer that, Jeff, but if you called your local office, they should be able to, or you can call, I think that you can look up on the DCYF website. I think they have an extended foster care department. And so I would maybe encourage you to talk to somebody at who's leading the extended foster care with the department to answer the specific questions and let you know. But that's interesting. I'll take that back because I don't know about that. Tim, yes, they do have the mandatory 17 and a half staff meetings for kids. So that's been one of the things that we're trying to change. And I think it's changing now. So previously it was 6 months prior to exiting, they would have a meeting where they would discuss transitions. And I think it's just like everything else I've been saying earlier, these young people don't really understand what's going on at that meeting, and they don't understand what they need to be asking. And I think that, like my own experience, I would just say yes to everything. And so it wouldn't be very helpful. And so I think it's really hard when they're put on the spot. One of the things, if you do have a young person, I would really encourage you to talk to them, because the young person that is 17 and a half at those meetings, they are, they're allowed to bring a few people into the meetings to help support them. And I think that your role as a child advocate would be an amazing role if you can, to go and help advocate for that young person and in that meeting, and making sure that they understand what's going on. Because I think there's a lot of things that they really don't know. And that is where they bring in the extended foster care. So maybe there is some form that they sign. I'm out of that part of the world right now, so I don't know, but I'll look into it because I'm very curious to know. But I think that that's where you could speak up. Yeah, so so Passion to Action, we've been advocating that 17 and a half gets moved to being more frequently. So I think, I'm not sure, don't quote me, but I think that they've started a thing where at 14, they start talking about the transitions, and then at 15, and then 16, and then it's 17 and a half is the last one that they do the transitions conversation with the young person to hopefully give them tools. And I think that's really what they need, is that if something goes wrong, they need to know who to contact. They need to know who can help them with the situation. And I think that that's where it's hard for that young person. So I had a young person that was at community college, and they failed their classes. So they got put on probation. And as a result of being on probation, they lost their funding, and they lost their ETV money and some other things. And so if they had come to me to connect them with the right person at ETV, they probably would have been homeless, because at that point they had started to give up. So it's really important that we connect them with people that they need help with. And that I see that really frequently. A lot of our young people get really nervous about, they don't want to ask for help. And sometimes they ask for it, and it's, I hate to say it, almost too late. So that's one of the things that I want to try. I try to teach them is like, ask at the beginning, and don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay. I give them the example of, like, when I applied for financial aid, I had no idea what I was doing. So I went into the financial aid office and I asked somebody there to help me. And, and I spent probably, I think I've spent the last 5 years, I go every once in a while with my young person in, because they don't want to go by themselves, and I'll go with them and help them. I don't really help them. I'm just there. And so if they feel that they need it, and they're more often than not, they're fully capable and they are able to do it. It's just reassuring to have somebody else there if they have a question or something makes them nervous. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. There are extended foster care has been there's a lot of good things about it, and there's a lot of things that are they still need to work on, and we're figuring it out on how to do that. My normalcy work group eventually will, I don't know how we're going to do that, but eventually we'll be working on how to incorporate normalcy for young people in extended foster care also, because we've been working on the younger kids. Lindsay has a question about the 17 and a half.
It's not a question. It was more of a story. I'm sorry.
Stories.
I realized after the fact that it was really long and
No. Oh, it's not. Thank you, Lindsay, for sharing this. I mean, this is a very good example of what I'm saying. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I mean, I was baffled, and even I was checking out of the meeting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel terrible saying that, because I was supposed to be there taking notes and supporting, but like, it was even frustrating for me as a 30-some-year-old adult, like, to hear everything that was being spouted off at the kiddo was just, it was rough. And right.
Yeah.
It's 6 months before you're leaving, and there's just this massive checklist of things that are so confusing. Oh, I'm sorry for you. Yeah. And that's what I mean, is that quite often is what we're seeing. And then they get lost, and then it's very difficult for them to get back. And I think that, like, if you have a young person in that age bracket that you're advocating for, you may want, if you can, try to prepare yourself for that meeting and ask questions, and maybe ask other your conference is a great space for you guys to network with one another across the state and have different views of what's going on in your communities, and just asking people, have you been to that meeting? What did you hear at the meeting? What do you think they need to be saying at the meeting? And I think that it's really, I think it's cruel. Personally, I didn't know at 17. I mean, did any of you guys know at 17 what you were going to do next? No. And it's that lifeline. That's the concern. It's like they don't have that when they leave foster care, they don't have a lifeline. And so how do we create that? If you read in, if you guys go to Foster Club's website, they have a permanency pact. I have very mixed feelings about it. But it's just a space where they're trying to create a contract with an adult that can be that person for that young person once they've exited care, that can help them to connect. It's really about guiding more than anything, and, you know, navigating, and how do you connect them to the right person to help them with that situation, right? Like, you know, they might have some kind of thing in their dorm, and like, who do you contact? They don't know. And so if they have someone that they can ask, who do I contact? And they usually can connect the dots. And sometimes they need support and sometimes they don't. It just really varies from kiddo to kiddo as to what their specific needs are and where they are developmentally. And I think that that's the hardest thing. Did your young person feel, Lindsay, did your young person feel supported, and were they, did they have any questions afterwards?
No, that's the thing. And it's an advocate's case. So I need to check back in with her on kind of where he's at now. But he's a kiddo that was kind of checked out already, already had been through a bunch of foster homes, just didn't really want to deal with us, all of that. And so it's just one more new adult just talking at him.
Yeah.
And that's really hard.
Yep. Yeah. So like, and what do you think might have helped him? Do you have like any thoughts?
Well, I don't think all of that information should be shared in one meeting. Like either break it up, have, I don't know, share with the whole team what the information is, so that each of us could be having conversations, checking in from time to time. All that kind of stuff. Because I mean, as a guardian ad litem advocate supervisor, like, I didn't know all of the stuff that was going to be brought up.
Wow. Okay.
So, maybe if I had known, or if the advocate had known, yeah.
That, and maybe Ryan, you asked the DCYF to do a workshop on transition on the 17.5 staffing, maybe, so that you can have your advocates know ahead of time what's going to be asked.
Like, great, give me more work.
Well, if you just attend a workshop, you can, you'll have the thing. I think it's just like everything, right? Knowledge is really what can make or break a situation.
Hey, Jeannie.
Yes.
What was the name of the group you said you didn't have a warm and fuzzy feeling about?
Jeff had the answer. Permanency pact. The permanency pacts.
Is it thank you, Ryan. Sorry, I was like, wait a minute, what is it? It's a permanency pact. Yes, so that's their foster club. They've the young people have created this. It's a booklet with information, and there I have mixed feelings because I hate that we have to have another contract with somebody. I don't like that. I don't think it should be a contract. And I've said that. The person that is, the young person should be able to choose who they trust and who can help them the best, right? Okay. And so that pact is just, I hate the word permanency because nothing's permanent. Okay. So I have a lot of issues around that, I guess. Okay. When you talk about trying to create this for somebody, I think it makes it really difficult. I think things need to be natural. They need to be, it doesn't feel authentic, I guess. Okay. And so I think you might see young people they don't trust and reach out. So for example, like I have a lot of young people that they have a social worker that they can go to ask those questions and get the answers that they need, and they are terrified, and so they come to me, and then I talk them up, and I have them do it themselves. But before, I would just go to the social worker and say, look, this is what's going on, maybe you can ask questions around this and try to reach the young person this way. And now I've moved into a space of I'd rather empower the young person so that they can have an opportunity to practice some of these skills. But it's really hard I think it's true of anybody, right? It's really hard to know how much you can trust somebody. And if you share something, how it will, I think young people are concerned about the long-term picture of what they might say and how it'll be perceived. And so they can't see short-term opportunities to correct that situation before it gets into that long-term.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I would really encourage you to look over the idea of the permanency pact and kind of see where, because I think you'll see what young people are saying that they need and want. And like I've been saying all along, like CASA and child advocates are an amazing opportunity for young people to have a safe space, I call it, to practice having somebody that's consistently there that hopefully hears them and will help them to learn how to speak up for themselves, to ask for what they need and become their own advocates, right? So then they not only do they have somebody that's advocating for them, but they also learn how to advocate for themselves. It's an amazing chance for that. Yeah, Pamela, that is interesting. Yeah, it's really hard. That's a hard conversation. I think with the with extended foster care now supporting all, like pretty much every opportunity allows you to be covered in extended foster care. So hopefully they won't lose services. Okay, well, I think this time is up. If you guys have any other questions, feel free. I'll put in the chat box my email address. You're always welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to try to connect you with community partners and answer them. If you would like to learn more about Passion to Action, just let me know and I'll connect you up that way too. Thank you so much for this really wonderful conversation. I hope I answered everybody's questions. And thank you. Thank you so much, Ryan, for this opportunity. You have been the most amazing champion to alumni that I think we're all so grateful for everything you do.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Yeah.